Model World Live returned to the NEC for the second year, and the people at Key Model World like to play games and switch which hall it's in. They didn't catch me out. It's Q giving it away. Well, we start with Knaresborough. I think it's Knaresborough. That sounds Yorkshire enough, doesn't it? It's Harrogate Model Railway Club's Knaresborough, and it's based on how the station looked in the 1950s and 1960s period when steam was being replaced by diesel power. The 00 gauge model has been, in most cases, scratch built by group members with assistance from the ACOMB models on the buildings and Alexander Dixon on 3D printing and design for details on the viaduct and station lighting. Between the houses we catch a glimpse of a Q6 on an oil train passing over the small level crossing before it ventures onto the wonderfully modelled viaduct. It's passed by ex-LNER Hunt Class D49 locomotive on a small passenger working. Hornby magazine have dusted off 12 Trees Junction, important to the show. It models the final years of steam on the southern region at a location just outside the capital where two routes diverge. It is modelled in 00 gauge and is making its return to the exhibition circuit after 5 years in storage. It now features new scenic features, rolling stock and an upgraded control system. The London Underground has been modelled in the corner, and there's plenty of third rail action on this layout. Here we see a 2-car unit passing the depot and signal box. The pair of 33s patiently wait at the signal of their oil train. Now we come to the Yorkshire Coast Electric Tramway, and I've only got a glimpse of this layout. I didn't realise how big it was. The Yorkshire Coast Electric Tramway is presented by the Barnsley Model Railway Club and features a combination of working trams and road vehicles which travel from the town centre out into the country on a coastal journey. The tramway features full overhead electrification as well as scratch-built buildings and scenery around the line, which has numerous stops along its route as it climbs away from the town. Making Tracks 4 makes a return with the Watford Junction 8-foot extension. Pete Waterman and the Railnuts have continued their project to expand Watford Junction with this brand new feature of the skyline. The model of Watford Junction made its debut as part of the Guinness World Records largest portable model railway at Model World Live last year in April 2024. It was modelled just the mainline station platforms. Since then, it's been expanded front and rear with scale models of Watford Junction station buildings office block and the trio of new flats which stand on the east side of the station behind the car park. The layout displayed at Model World Live 2025 is the ultimate version of Watford Junction and sees the layout extended by 8 foot from 64 feet to 72 feet. New features include a trio of bespoke laser-cut flats of different design to the north of the road bridge, together with a model of the original London and Birmingham railway station building which served Watford from 1837 to 1858. We move further north from Watford Junction to road cutting, and we catch a Class 66 with a rake of PGA wagons passing by before the diverging route. Hornby magazine brought another layout to the show. This is Lanacside. It's one of the layouts to be completed by the Hornby magazine and Key Model World team, and is a model of a Scottish bridging terminus built in 00 gauge to an original £500 budget. It's since been upgraded with new features. Here we can see a Class 37, 37174 shunting some timber wagons in the sidings. It's passed by another EWS Class 37, 37401 on an inspection saloon vehicle. Finish our visit as 37174 moves into the head shop with its OTA timber wagons. Did you know that some of my exhibition videos have over 40,000 views, and yet I only have 5,000 subscribers? So if you like this type of video where I narrate and tell you all about the layouts, which is quite unique to most YouTube videos of exhibitions, then why don't you click the subscribe button and you can follow all my exhibition adventures. I like that coaster in the top corner of the cabinet there. This is Various Multiple Units, which is Danny's Instagram user handle, and you can find him there to observe all the lovely models he's made. Of course, he's brought them along today so you can see him in the flesh. Mostly based on third rail stock and for network southeast period, these are scratch-built models of absolute beauty in detail. If you want to know more about Danny's modelling, then why don't you find our episode on the podcast called The Next Station is Various Multiple Units, where we have a nice good old chat with him.
Pretty.
Talking of people from the podcast, this is Camelot, made by Peachy TT120, or Chris, as he's known by his mother. On display at the Heljan stand, which was here for one purpose and one purpose only, to show us the newly announced Class 122 and Class 55 in TT120. Exciting times for the scale, I must say. I think TT120 is here to stay. And also the layout looks absolutely fabulous, it really does. If you want to hear Chris's episode of the podcast, it's called The Next Station is PGTT120, and again, an absolute delight to talk to. I've come to a point in my life where I feel that I'm trying to make layouts too big. This doesn't seem to be a problem for Mick Worrell as he presents Glasgow Eastfield TMD. Glasgow Eastfield Depot models the real motive power depot located close to Glasgow Queen Street Station in the Scottish city. In fact, you can see that they are working on a model of the station in a moment. This stunning overage layout measures a whopping 70 foot by 40 foot and is making only its second public appearance, and its first in England, at Model World Live 2025, of course. The layout has been built by Mick Worrell, who's had a lifelong interest in Scottish railways, which include visits to Eastfield Depot in the 1980s. The layout features a double-track mainline across the front, with loops, while the central feature is the huge 11-road depot building and its associated structures. I promise we can see that one in a minute. All buildings and structures are scratch-built from the layout to replicate the real place in exacting detail. Trains all model the 1980s period, when BR large logo blue with Scotty Dog logos were the order of the day for the Class 37/4s, which are joined by an extensive fleet for the Class 08s, 20s, 26s, 27s and 47s. Passenger and freight traffic pass on the main lines at the front, while depot movements are undertaken independently, everything being controlled by the Rocco Z21 DCC system. As we look over the depot, we catch a pair of Class 20s moving from one side to the other, passing the large fuel storage tanks as they do.
don't have any Pullmans now.
On the main line, class 37261, paired with an unidentified class 20 in large logo rail freight grey, pass by with a nuclear trains working. The driver of the Class 20s has changed ends and heads off the head shunt back towards the depot. On the main line, the Class 37 passes by with a speed link working. There's a lot of freight working going on in Wimborne. This is Wimborne, and it's presented by the Wimborne Railway Society, and models the Southern Region station from its hometown in 00 gauge in stunning detail. The model is 00 fine scale and is currently 20 feet long and 12 feet wide. The layout consists of 4 L-shaped corner boards, each being 7 foot by 4 foot. Bridge boards, 4 foot by 2 foot, plus station staging boards measuring 6 foot by 2 foot. The layout is analog controlled and features mainline and branch line workings, as well as independent control of the goods yard for shunting purposes. Now we come to Loughborough Midland. Having spent many years watching the trains go past his office overlooking Loughborough Midland Station, Dave Tooley, who provided the inspiration for Loughborough Midland, along with his friends at the Ivanhoe Model Railway Society, constructed this 00 gauge layout to demonstrate the volume and variety of trains that pass this busy station on the Midland Main Line. The close proximity to the Brush Works, Derby Technical Centre, the Quarry at Mount Stroll, and the test facilities at Old Dalby ensures that we always have plenty of variety to entertain. This is also due to the use of a large storage yard at the rear of the layout. Here we can see a HST thundering through, heading towards St Pancras. Well, I assume it's heading towards St Pancras because the first class is at that end. Unless I've got my directions wrong with this layout. Let's assume London's that way. It's not long before we catch a pair of Class 31s on a very large and long and heavy looking block oil train as they pull TEA tankers along the line. finally, in the unique Midland Railway Red, is a Class 47 passing by on a passenger work. Now we're at Beggarwood Lane, no O gauge. Beggarwood Lane is the Basingstoke and North Hants Model Railway Club's latest OO gauge fine scale exhibition layout. The period is from the mid-1960s onwards, and the location is South London, with a fictionist series of junctions that allow access to all three divisions of the southern region. Most of the buildings are scratch built, including a working cinema, which is a new feature on the layout for 2025. A Class 47 on a rake of vans passes by on the main lines, whilst a 4 vet does its station duties before departing. There's lots going on in this layout, such as the extensive yard below the main lines and the various point work. There's a nice little town scene just behind the yard, and there's lots of action always going on this layout. Although a southern region-based layout, it seems the western region get a bit of a look in here too, as a Class 42 warship passes by on a passenger working, and in the opposite direction, a Class 52 western goes by on an engineering working.
Yeah, it's the roof, the roof.
We enter Torreycombe in OO gauge as a jute dog arrives at the station with a milk working. Torreycombe represents the terminus at the end of a branch in North Devon in OO gauge. It was built by Graham and Daniel Chandler. The line is closed to passengers and has been kept open for freight only, mainly to serve the dairy that has been built across much of the former goods yard, the reverse of what happened in much of that part of the world in the 1960s. Having arrived at the former station, the jute dog uncouples from its tankers and runs round the train so it can detach the parcels coach, which is more than likely carrying milk churns. There's lots of little detail to see on this layout, including the vegetable patch by the line side, obviously being grown by one of the plate layers, I can only assume. Ah, there he is himself, ignoring the locomotive as it runs around its train. With the full brake detached, the Duke dog moves forward and then shunts it to one of the sidings. As the coach is shunted in, we get the view of the rundown appearance of the whole station. Plants growing onto the canopy and over the platform. Next is a very quick stop at Quarry View, which is a wonderful little O-gauge layout. I didn't catch anything moving, but still, those models look great. And then on to Southwick, where the locomotive kept magically changing shape. Starting off here is a P-class.
I just know your dad builds locos.
Southwick models a small rural goods yard at the end of a run-down branch line, and is designed to show O-gauge can be done with reasonable scenery, depth and realistic length trains in a small space. It certainly does. Look at this. It's wonderful. Built by Harry Pollard, it is designed around a traditional Inglewood 5-3-3 shunting puzzle, using 1 point and a sector plate storage yard instead of the second point.
What have they got on the military? Is it just
For such a small O-gauge layout, there's lots and lots of detail. Firstly, you can hear birds singing in the trees, which is a lovely touch. And I also quite like the garden gnome by the house. There he is, just in the corner there, by that bay window. What a great little detail.
And it's on the same weekend as the Quarry. It's
Such a pleasant layout to sit back and watch the trains go by.
It was extensively tested.
Yeah, it can't have been much space. How much room did you stop to? Struggle exhausted.
Now we're moving to Daisy Lane, which is Simon Lemon's Daisy Lane TMD. It is a diesel depot set in East Anglia in the late 1980s all the way to the early 1990s, and is built to 00 gauge. The facility provides refuelling and a crew signing on point, as well as maintenance and stabling of locomotives.
They didn't really swing out that far.
As we look over Daisy Lane, a Class 56 moves from one of the stabling roads and heads out on towards the Mainline. Part of this lovely scene we get to see inside the depot, because none of the buildings have roofs, and because I managed to bring a nice long selfie stick with me, we can get a good view in a couple of moments.
Yeah, because that's no option, as you say, if you're coming in like that, is to put a curve in to get it round there.
The scene is full of detail, lots of sleepers littered around the trackside, old wheel sets left on some of the rails, and I think there's even an old water tower in the corner there, probably from when the depot was of steam days.
Depot of years gone by, seeing actually how...
As the 56 pulls into the head shunt, we get to have the overview of the interior of the maintenance depot, as I promised.
We were looking at recently, and the track work for that is so custom, and you think, well, how am I going to make that work with the set, not set track, but Pico standard track, and by the time
absolute brilliant detail in here. The lighting in the inspection pit, the workbenches, the lifting arms, everything you need for a diesel maintenance depot.
It's streamlined. It's code 100, so it's still quite resilient. 75 is nice, but I find it's really flimsy compared to 100.
Anything of older stock, they just don't like it.
It's funny you say that. We've got a few lemurs on here as well. We're in the process, or Simon's in the process of changing the wheel sets over. But yeah, like I said, if you had old lemur stuff and 75 track, forget it. Yeah. And to be honest, does it really make that much difference? Some would argue yes, but
Well, it's like detailing a locos. If you're there with your nose up against it, you can tell if it's the latest, whatever it may be. But even at this distance, it's difficult to see some of that finer detail.
Yeah,
Particularly
I mean,
older than yours, that is.
I was trying to find. Yeah, actually, I haven't got a link.
Tom from Buggles Kelly Station was displaying his latest project of Mrs. Kindly's Cottage in celebration of 80 years of the Railway Series. Tom's going to be on our podcast in a couple of weeks to talk all things 80 years of the Railway Series, so do make sure you don't miss out on that. Now we're off to South Wales. This is Cardiff Canton. The new traction maintenance depot at Cardiff was constructed in 1964 at a cost of £1.3 million, making the true start of dieselisation in South Wales. Chris Fordham's Ower gauge layout represents the eastern end of this once busy depot. To enable the correct track plan, a mix of Pico bullhead and handfield track has been used. The layout is powered by a Rocco Z21 Wi-Fi system operated from tablets and phones. The rolling stock has been researched and modelled by Chris to represent the locos based in Cardiff during the 1998 to 2004 period, which is quite a rare modelled period, to be honest, so it's quite refreshing to see that transition between the end of BR to the start of privatisation. Here we can observe a coal-sectored Class 37 delivering fuel tanks for the depot.
It is actually.
Next is a bit of synchronised running as the BR Green livery Class 37 moves along the depot, and on the top road the Class 59 ARC livery. The ARC Class 59 was actually based at Cardiff Canton because it was brought in by EWS at the time for drivers to learn the controls of the newly ordered Class 66s, and so it spent quite some time in that area. The driver of the Green 37 changes end, and the Class 59 heads out towards the main line.
We're at 13%. I don't think that's really much difference.
The O-Gauge Guild were present at the show, and they brought along Weekend Yard, just to demonstrate what could be modelled in O-Gauge. Looks fabulous, although I think the driver's gone on break, because there's not a lot moving around. Still, you can appreciate the detail and the wonders that is 7mm scale modelling. Now we come to 5 Mile House, Lincoln & District's MRC's OO gauge layout, which models 5 Mile House in 1935. The trains that ran through 5 Mile House were many and varied, including fish trains from Boston, coal trains from the Yorkshire coalfields, and more. They also run a variety of passenger trains, with most featuring kit-built rolling stock, including twins, triplets, and quads. This includes everyday stoppers and express trains, which have been diverted to Lincolnshire Loop from the East Coast Mainline. As we look over 5 Mile House, a Stirling single passes by with a rake of 4-wheel coaches in tow. Who would have thought a few years ago we would have got all these items as ready to run? Absolutely incredible how the model railway world has evolved. Marley Potts and Witherwack Sidings now. What a name. This is an OO gauge layout. Marley Potts and Witherwack are just to the north of the River Wear on the outskirts of Sunderland, presented in OO gauge by this 16-foot by 8-foot railway by Ian's Forsyth. The model depicts the period from 1953 to 1963, and so steam and diesel locomotives are seen together. The National Coal Board does have running rights on the mineral line, which leads to additional motive power from outside the BR fleet operating on the layout, making for interesting operations. Here, a pair of Class 25s pass by with some empty flats, and a 9-foot Class 4 MT arrives with some empty hopper lines. The Flying Pig passes the signal box and moves round onto the mineral line. At the other end of the layout, the Type 2s, because I'm not sure, I think they might actually be Class 24s, on my hands up there, depart with the empty flat wagons. And we finish our visit with an overall view of the sidings. Temple Bridge is a model of a fictional station built by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway on the north side of the River Thames. Modelled in the 1950s to 1960s BR period, it is located between Charing Cross and Blackfriars Station in the Temple area of the embankment. Roughly where the present-day Temple District Line tube station is between Somerset House and the Inner Temple Legal Office area. It is exhibited by John Tessai and Redditch Model Railway Club. We get an overview of the station before the arrival of a 4-car electrical model unit. The unit comes to a stand at the signal and awaits a road into one of the platforms. Next is Burdock. Burdock is a fictional village supposedly along the Golden Valley line between Swindon and Stroud. The name is borrowed from Cider with Rosie by Laurie Lee, which was set not far away in the Stag Valley. Burdock was Rosie's surname. The layout is a 12-foot by 3-foot continuous run in N-gauge with a storage yard that holds 16 scale-length trains. The viewing side features the station set in the steep wooded valley with hundreds, literally, of hand-made trees. Traffic is typical of that which would have been seen at the time, although various prototype, experimental or proposed locomotives also feature. And here's one of them now, as Lion passes by with a coal queue. In the opposite direction, a very lost Duchess locomotive passes by an express. The key model world isn't just about model railways, it's about all sorts of modelling. This is a 1-to-1 scale Spitfire. It doesn't really fly, it's a model of 1-to-1 scale. Isn't that impressive? And it wasn't just this was on show. There was all sorts, from boats to Harrier jets to sci-fi models, even Scalextrics was on show. And here's a little sample, including one of my very favourite models, which was the exploded diagram tank with all its interior detail. Absolutely incredible modelling. Now we have the Borth, Abverdovey and Ynyslas Railway. I don't know. Apologies. This is a 1 and 12 scale seaside miniature railway, which is based on the Fairbourne Miniature Railway near Barmouth, set in modern times. It runs from the main station past the engine sheds and turntable to the other end of the line, featuring a long tunnel on the balloon loop before arriving at the beach station in amongst the beach huts. Now we come to Dorehill St Stevens. Dorehill is a business layout based in the South Yorkshire North Midlands area between 1957 and 1962, allowing the Swan Valley Model Railway Club to run both steam and early diesels from the BR Midlands with visiting stock from the eastern and western regions. The layout is made up with 22 boards and is over 40 feet long and 15 feet wide. It is modelled in low gauge. It is a freestanding design so that the public can view all four sides with operation from the centre. To make this complex layout work, it is controlled by 11 operators using 7 control panels and 11 controllers. We're about 3 sides round now as we see the Jubilee and Black 5 depart with the passenger working. Next, we'll move on to the sheds before getting to the triangular junction. Seems to be a spot of bother at the triangular junction, as the DMU has definitely passed that signal as the passenger train goes across the point work. Oh dear. I'm sure it'll all be fine in the end. I mean, they didn't collide at least. The DMU stops by the signal box, probably so driver and signalman can get their stories straight, before carrying on towards the station. and the final section of the layout to be viewed. Driver the DMU isn't doing too well because I don't think there was a permissive signal there, and he comes crawling into the platform as another train departs just ahead of it. Oh dear, I'm glad I'm not on that train. This is Brickco's Mainline in L gauge. Why is it called L gauge? Because it's Lego gauge, and the track work is just slightly smaller than O gauge, so they're not quite the same. And here is a wonderfully built A4 in Lego. Always a delight to see this Lego layout at exhibitions, and it's always different. In fact, I don't recall seeing the Forth Bridge before, and it was massive. What an impressive achievement. Talking of massive things, not like that, GL5 Railway, which is a 5-inch gauge railway. This OH shunter was huge, absolutely ginormous. This is all presented by the GL5, which is the 5-inch gauge ground level mainline association, and they were there to promote the building and running of 5-inch gauge trains at ground level. I know the irony is on the table. Do you know George Williamson on YouTube? If you don't, you really should go find him. It's an excellent channel, and this is one of his excellent layouts. This is Corrish, the only 009 gauge layout at the show. And I've got to say, Key Model World, a little disappointed on the lack of 009. Can we have more next year, please? Corrish is a 009 gauge layout built as a greatest hits of the old Corrish Railway, a 2-foot 3-inch narrow gauge slate railway in mid Wales. The layout itself is based around a simple loop of track. However, on its journey, the trains pass through fieldland, over a whitewater stream, through dense woodland, through a station, and into a slate quarry, all within a footprint of 18 inches by 37 inches. The layout is unique as it does not feature a setback scene, and as such can be viewed from any angle, giving the small layout a much larger feel as you follow the trains down the valley. George was also a guest on the Model Rail Replacement podcast, and you can find his episode under The Next Station Is George Williamson. Again, an absolute pleasure to talk to. A really great modeller with so many hints and tips and tricks to help you with your own modelling. And as I say, you really should go find his YouTube channel if you haven't. I highly recommend it. Luckily, I come back to see George a little bit later because we were both in search of wheels, and he managed to get his tattoo running, which had been causing trouble for the day. So, here's a little bit of his Corrish tattoo running around Corrish. And if you must know, we both did find sets of wheels for our 009 models. There you go. What a funny story. Now we're at Tytton Hall Yard in 00 gauge. Tytton Hall Yard is the exhibition layout built by the Boston Model Railway Society in 00 gauge. It represents the 1980s to 1990s period with a combination of busy mainline above and a coal concentration yard and loading facility below. The brother of one of the members designed the working rapid loader using a 3D CAD program and printed it using his own 3D printer. The coal is wood and scenic cinders ballast. Their primary aim is to always keep something moving. They hope that you enjoy viewing the layout, and you will, because I get an absolute fabulous shot. These two 37s will be joined by, I believe, 3 other great pieces of traction. Just keep watching. It was amazing, even if it was model form. Here it is, look at that. 3 Class 37s and 2 Class 20s. My lord, that's hellfire.
Yeah. Now you see these like coloured symbols.
And if you look just behind the coaches, you can see the evidence of the working coal hopper. As the last one's filled up, The 237s pull the wagons back out from the loader to collect the empties and push them towards the chute.
In that. Isn't it? It's very clever. Yes. That's it, exactly.
We finish our visit here as a Class 117 in regional railways livery passes over the bridge. Now we're off to Manston Airport. Sir Herbert Walker was a forward-looking general manager of the Southern Railway who pressed ahead with electrification and development of Southampton docks, both of which brought substantial traffic to the Southern. Andy Hopper's little bit of make-believe is that he also decided to back air transport and develop the existing aerodrome at Manston in East Kent for long-distance passenger, mail and freight. The layout is set in the early 1950s, when the USAAF were based at Manston and is built to a low gauge. The buildings are all scratch-built from plastic sheet and strip. Stock is mostly from kits, with some scratch-built items. After several years on the circuit, they have added an extra baseboard to give the trains a longer run and add some more shunting interest. And now we're jumping right up to the other end of the country as we go to Scotland for Tellindalloch. Tellindalloch is set in north-east Scotland and is the terminus of the fictitious ex-Great North of Scotland Railway branch line built in OO gauge by Terry Tew and set in the 1948 to 1965 period. Situated at the front of the layout is the entrance to a whisky distillery. Most of the buildings are scratch-built, including the very typical GNSR goods shed and signal box. The station building is loosely based on the one at Carrick. All of the 70-plus trees of various sizes on the layout are handmade and give the layout its distinctive autumn theme. I decided to step back and take a nice big wide shot of this layout so you could appreciate that autumn scene as well, because it does look absolutely spectacular. All those oranges, yellows, reds mixed with the greens really does give it that autumn feel. I think it looks absolutely brilliant. Here we can see a small 040 shunter moving a wagon around at the distillery. Having uncoupled from its train, the Caledonian 812 locomotive moves into the head shunt to run round. Now, I've been told in the past I've pronounced this wrong, so here goes. I'm hoping I'm getting it right. This is Poulton-le-Fylde. Poulton-le-Fylde Junction is an Ower gauge layout exhibited by the North Western Model Railway Group and features a single island platform station. It was once one of the longest in the UK, but has now been shortened to reflect the reduced needs of modern passenger stock. Substantial changes have taken place to Poulton-le-Fylde since the layout was built, including electrification of the line and alterations to the junctions and road bridge. This conveniently locks the layout in a time period between 2010 to 2017. For operational interest of the layout, the passengers and freight services to Fleetwood have been reinstated. Here we see a Class 37 Torreycombe Mark IIs departing the station. This layout has always been one of my favourites on the exhibition circuit, and it was great to see it extended. What was even better was that the big controller himself, as he's known on Instagram, invited me to come and have a play with the trains on the layout. And what a great time that was. I'd like to thank the North Western Group for inviting me round the back scenes and having a go on the layout. It was absolutely great, and because it is one of my favourite layouts, it was so much fun to play with. So, thank you very much, guys.
They renamed it Junction.
Yeah.
As we look over the scene, a Class 37 arrives with a nuclear working. With the 37 gone, the 158 that has been waiting on the platform closes its doors and departs. Well, that's all for the show. I managed to get most of the layouts in. There was a handful I missed out on, but I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please click the like button. If you want to see more, then click that subscribe button, and hopefully I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. What's that you say? You want more? Well, here you go. There's plenty to choose from.